Okay folks, here we are at the official American Honda press launch. Here is the mechanical key. It goes in the ignition right there, and away we go. This is the official press introduction for American Honda's 2024 Shadow Phantom Cruiser. This is a bobber style middleweight cruiser from American Honda Motor Company. It is built in Japan. Kumamoto, Japan is where this vehicle is manufactured, which is pretty neat. Sorry for having to start our video there. If you can believe it, our video camera locked up and I had to reset it. I had to do a cold reset, meaning I had to take the camera out of the housing, remove the battery, plug it back in, and away we go. Now, this motorcycle sees a couple updates for the 2024 model year here in the United States. We've got updated styling, some new colors, a bigger rear brake disc, and some finishing details. Now, Honda's Shadow, if you can even believe it, the Shadow model dates back to 1983. If you can even believe it, 41 years of Honda's Shadow here in the United States. When that motorcycle debuted in America in 1983, American Honda sold almost 20,000 bikes that year. Isn't that crazy? 20,000 Shadows way back in 83 in the first year. Now, when the Shadow was originally introduced, it almost looked like a VMAX. That whole kind of style of motorcycle, that aggressive cruiser, that was kind of the look of those bikes back then. Then over the years, the look morphed into more of a motor company replica with the long and low swept design, a lot of chrome. So for you folks out there that want that more traditional, the motor company type of middleweight cruiser, Honda continues to offer its Aero cruiser. But we're not riding that today. Today we're riding the Shadow Phantom. Alright folks, right away sitting on this vehicle, the ergonomics are very cruiser-ish. We have mid-controls. Mid-controls are where our feet rest. Although they are mid-controls, they're a little bit more far forward, I guess, than true mid-controls. But still, by definition, these would be mid-controls, though they are a little bit far forward. The handlebar has a very far forward bend. I'm 6 foot tall, I have long arms, and my arms are fully outstretched. If you are a shorter rider, you might have a little bit of a hard time grabbing onto this thing just because the distance between the handlebar and the seat is a little bit far away. Honda cites that it basically coined the ergonomics package on the motor company's now retired Sportster 48. So that vehicle with its ergonomics, even though the motor company no longer manufactures that vehicle or platform, Honda copied, or didn't copy, but borrowed the ergonomics layout of that vehicle. So mid controls, real far forward handlebar. It's got a little bit of rearward sweep. It's not too high, not too low. It's nice. I like these hand grips. These hand grips, they don't look the best. They kind of look plasticky, but they fit really nice in your hands. They're nice and oversized. They have a really nice feel to them. This seat, this Shadow Phantom, is a one-seater made for a rider only. Of course, American Honda offers an accessory. For $100, you can purchase an accessory seat, and then a passenger can come along with you on rides. Now, the rider's seat, it's fitting us really nice. We're 6 foot tall, we weigh 205 pounds right now, and the seat is very low, and it really supports the rider's rear end. Feels like a dish. You're sitting in this nice dish. So it's a nice pocket of comfort. We've only logged a handful of miles, so who knows how the ultimate comfort would be on this thing. We'll find out hopefully in a little bit, but so far so good. Once again, we're at the official American Honda press introduction for this vehicle. These are lead follow type rides. We cannot put this motorcycle through our traditional battery of tests. We aren't able to operate this bike at night. We have to lead follow. We are on American Honda's program. This is not a free-for-all. So we can't just do what we do and do our normal battery of comprehensive tests. So keep that in mind, folks. All right, we're gearing up for our photography stop. This photography stop is used to capture images that we use on the motorcyclistonline.com web domain. Sometimes we use them as a graphic in the YouTube thumbnail, but lately they want us to do these funky looking face graphics, so that's what we're going to be doing today probably. So alright, we're going to do a photo stop right now, and we'll check in with you in a little bit. Alright folks, scratch that. We're going to a different spot apparently for the photo stop. Once again, this is a lead follow style ride. We are not in charge. Back to the Honda Shadow Phantom. I really like the engine sound of this motorcycle. This thing's got a really nice growl to it. There's the photography team. This thing's got a really nice growl to it. Sounds really good. Of course, this vehicle is powered by a 745cc V-twin engine. This engine is canted at a 52-degree angle, so the V is 52 degrees. For comparison, the motor company uses a 45-degree V in its engine. If you can even believe it, back in the day when the Shadow was first launched in '83, it used the same 45-degree V angle. So that has since widened to 52 degrees. So that is the engine that powers this vehicle. We misspoke and said it's air-cooled. This engine is not air-cooled. This engine employs a radiator. This is a liquid-cooled engine. The radiator, of course, is tucked up nicely in front of behind the front wheel. It's painted all black, so you can't really see it. All right, folks, we're doing our photo stop now. We'll check in with you in a little bit. All right, folks, we did it. That was a successful photo stop. Back to the engine on this bike, 745cc water-cooled overhead cam engine. 3-valve cylinder heads. Kind of crazy, right? So we have 2 intake valves and 1 exhaust. 1 on the front cylinder, 1 on the back. So 6-valve engine in total. This engine's good for right around 40 horsepower. So it's not the fastest thing on the road, but you'd be surprised. Like, this thing's got some decent get up and go. Around 40 pound-feet of torque, and it definitely has good bottom end and that sound. I love the sound of this thing. Listen to that thing. Sounds good. That's a good sounding exhaust. Now, this water-cooled engine puts power back to a 15-inch rear wheel via a 5-speed transmission and a cable-actuated clutch. We also have shaft final drive, which is on the left-hand side of the vehicle. So there's no chain, there's no belt, shaft final drive. Shaft final drive is really nice because it affords a really clean appearance. If we look at this bike here from the port side, you can see the shaft final drive right there. It looks very clean. There's no mess, there's no grease or excess chain residue to clean up off the back of the bike. It's also relatively devoid of maintenance. Of course, you do have to service the shaft final drive, but the increments are well past 10,000 mile increments. And we'll get to the maintenance on this vehicle in a little bit. The clutch action is nice and light. This has a really nice, light feeling clutch. If you're someone who doesn't have a crazy strong arm, you're gonna like this bike because the clutch action's nice and light, yet it's not wimpy. It has a nice feel to it. The pull, there's enough tension on the pull to make it feel like a quality motorcycle. Sometimes with these entry-level and mid-size vehicles, the clutch pull is just so wimpy that it just doesn't feel like it has the right amount of tension on it. It just feels cheap. This clutch doesn't feel cheap. I like it. 5-speed gearbox, shifts up and down very nicely, real nice, precise shift feel. Throws are pretty short as well. There is no heel shifter on this vehicle, just a conventional shift lever which you actuate with the front part of your left foot. Really like that shifter feel. It feels real precise. You give her a little bit of RPM bump and it just drops into the next cog nice and smooth. Same on the downshifts. You give her a little throttle blip, she downshifts really nicely. Ooh, I love the sound of this engine. This thing sounds boss. Crazy to think that a $8,300 cruiser that's made in Japan can sound this awesome. Now, the engine drinks from a 3.9 gallon fuel tank. This engine runs on 87 octane, so no need to get the premium stuff. 87 octane is just fine for this thing. Honda says that this engine should be good for over 50 mpg. Again, this vehicle is not putting through our exhaustive battery of tests, so we're not going to be able to report on the actual fuel mileage, but Honda says over 50. That means right around 45. Now, keeping tabs on everything is this simple and classic looking swept face analog style speedometer. This is a traditional component that cruisers have used for years. We also have this small rectangular LCD which keeps track of our double trip meters, the time, and the odometer functions. There's a button right here that manipulates that setting. We are now climbing up Highway 39, I believe. This is one of my favorite roads from a long time ago. Back in the old days, we used to ride up this road a lot. We actually did a lot of our testing and industry leading comparisons and shootouts at the time on this road. So this road definitely brings back memories. I think this road is a little bit more popular than it was 10-15 years ago. So definitely more traffic on it than back when we were whaling on this thing. But it always feels good to be riding on any type of bike, especially when you got curvy road in front of you. Oh yeah, this thing handles pretty good for a 500-pound cruiser. We have just over 5 inches of suspension travel up front and 3.5 out back. We have a standard telescopic fork. You can tell the rake is fairly far forward, especially for a bobber style motorcycle. And out back we have a pair of hydraulic shock absorbers that attach on either side of the motorcycle. They have preload adjustment, so you can adjust the spring preload of either shock in 5 increments. And you'd want to adjust the preload to modify the ride height of the rear of the vehicle. Let's say you want the rear end of the vehicle to sit a little bit higher, you crank in more preload. Let's say you're going to be carrying a passenger, or you're a heavy guy like me, or maybe you put some luggage on this bike, you're going to want to add preload. It just adjusts the balance of the chassis and makes it more favorable. Kind of depends on what kind of vehicle I'm operating. Sometimes I like a lot of preload, sometimes I don't like any. Just kind of depends. Typically with touring bikes and cruisers, I generally like the rear end to sit a little bit low. It just makes for a more cruisy-ish type ride. Of course, on more sporty bikes, generally I like to have more preload because it sharpens the head angle. The angle of attack of the vehicle makes it a little bit sharper in terms of steering handling. It also keeps the back of the bike up, so when you're riding a bike that has a lot of power, generally it's nice to have that back end a little bit higher because it keeps you from just squatting that rear tire and just wearing out the rear tire. So again, just depends on the road surface and the type of vehicle we're operating. But it's still nice to know that American Honda allows you to change that in 5 increments. Now earlier when we were riding in the city, this bike has pretty good ride quality. We rode over some bumpy stretches of pavement, and this thing rides pretty dang good. Rebound wasn't crazy fast, compression wasn't crazy slow nor fast. Really makes for an accommodating ride. Obviously this road is a little bit smoother, but you can still see that there are some pavement imperfections. But the suspension's doing a nice job of filtering out those imperfections and allowing us to have a real comfortable ride. That guy did an illegal maneuver. We would never cross the double yellow lines while operating a vehicle. It's against the law. We here at Motorcyclist Magazine follow the letter of the law. We also are advocates of all safety gear all the time. We're always wearing motorcycle specific gloves. We're always wearing a full face dot labeled helmet. We're always wearing above the ankle footwear. We're always wearing appropriate riding jeans and or pants with armor, and we're always wearing a full sleeve jacket with armor. If you want to have a long, safe life on 2 wheels, you always want to wear motorcycle gear. Anytime you're swinging a leg over a scooter, a cruiser, doesn't matter what you ride. If you're riding on a public roadway, all gear all the time. That's how we roll here at Motorcyclist Magazine. Alright folks, we'll check in with you in a little bit. Yes, finally some clean air. And geez Louise, this feels nice. I like that my legs are just in the breeze. This is a very cruiser-ish riding position. Good for logging miles. Of course, being a middleweight bobber style cruiser, this isn't the kind of motorcycle you're gonna ride cross country. This is for short rides in and out of town. Have some fun with your friends on the weekend and see the sights and sounds of the town and rural area on your motorcycle. Engine vibration on the 745cc V-twin. You definitely feel engine vibration through the controls, through the handlebar, through the foot pegs. I wouldn't say it's overwhelming. It fits the vibe, literally, no pun intended, of these cruiser style motorcycles. So you're definitely going to feel vibration. It adds to the experience. I wouldn't say the vibration is as precisely tuned as other motorcycles we've ridden, but it's not just willy-nilly style either. There's a purpose for the vibration. It adds to the cruiser V-twin experience without it being excessive. Ground clearance, We touched down the foot pegs back in that last turn, even at a moderate lean angle. This isn't the kind of bike you're going to be wailing around turns on, but it's perfectly capable of getting a moderate amount of lean angle. We mentioned the rear wheel is a 15-inch rear wheel. The front wheel is 17 inches in diameter. We have dual disc brakes, one disc brake in the front, one in the rear, and that keeps speed in check on this 540 some pound cruiser. We've got a low fuel light that illuminates if the 3.9 gallon fuel tank starts to run low. It would be nice if American Honda included some type of MPG calculator here in this LCD display. I'd also like a ambient air temperature. I love ambient air temperature. It just helps you know what the temp is outside. Now, we talked about the ergonomics, how the riding position on this bike is very stretched out. If you're a taller person, you're going to like the way this bike fits. If you're shorter, it might be a little bit much for you. Now, of course, you can always adjust the position of the handlebar by rolling the handlebar forward or backward. You want to use, I believe it's going to be a 6mm Allen key. Loosen these 4 bolts, and then you can do that. Whoa! We got some road construction, folks. Shout out to all the hard workers out here that keep America running, that put in the work. Midnight to midnight, no excuses, no complaining, just getting her done. Like this guy. Nice, man. No complainers. God, this is a fun bike to ride. Just proves that you don't need to spend $20,000 on a full dresser style bagger. I mean, obviously those motorcycles kick butt and they're totally awesome, but for $8,300, something you can cruise around on, pretty neat. It's pretty crazy because realistically, Harley-Davidson, they started this whole market. And fast forward to 2023, if you can even believe it, Harley-Davidson doesn't offer an entry-level Sportster anymore. Their entry-level bike is the $13,500 water-cooled Nightster. $13,500 is a lot of money for a motorcycle. This thing's $8,300. If you want ABS, fixed always-on ABS, which fully mitigates wheel lockup if you are applying too much brake pressure to the front or rear brake, that's a $300 upcharge. $8,600 for that Shadow. For a motorcycle that is built in Japan. Unbelievable that American Honda is able to offer this motorcycle for under $9,000. It's pretty cool. Of course, American Honda and Honda Motor Japan, their build quality on their vehicles is legendary. These motorcycles are built as tough as they come. Of course, Honda stands behind its product with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty. It also offers extended warranties as available as an accessory at your local Honda Power Sports dealer here in the United States. Maintenance-wise, after initial 600 mile service, this bike goes 8,000 miles between oil changes. 8,000 miles between oil changes. Honda recommends you replace the oil filter cartridge every other oil change. So every 16,000 miles you replace the oil filter. Oddly enough, the valve inspection interval on each of the 3 valves in the front and rear cylinder head is every 8,000 miles as well. So every time you change the oil, Honda wants you to inspect the clearance of each of the 6 valves. Kind of crazy. It also recommends you change the spark plugs every 8,000 miles as well. The air filter, on the other hand, goes a little bit longer. That goes 12,000 miles. between replacement. But in our experience, you always want to change the air filter on any bike or car, truck, anything, well before what the recommendation says. In my personal experience, you always change the air filter quite often. Oil, on the other hand, I'm a manual guy. Whatever the manual says, I generally follow, unless it's a turbocharged vehicle. If it's a turbocharged vehicle, I'll generally change the oil a little bit more frequently, because my turbocharged vehicles, I always drive like a crazy person, and the oil cools the impeller of the turbo, so you really want to make sure that the oil stays clean and fresh. So 8,000 miles between oil changes, 16,000 mile oil filters, 8,000 miles for spark plugs, valve inspection, and 12,000 miles for the air filter. So when you buy a Honda product, it's no surprise these things are made to go the distance. We're going to talk about the fit and finish on this bike in a little bit when we're at a stop, but of course it's a Honda, so you know it's going to be good. Alright folks, we'll check in with you in a little bit. These rear view mirrors, I like the round shape of them. Definitely a little bit of vibration through the mirrors, but I wouldn't say it's bad. Alright folks, we'll check in with you in a little bit. Alright folks, lighting on this motorcycle. This motorcycle employs a halogen bulb headlamp and tail light, but LED turn signals. And that's kind of strange, because normally we see motorcycles offering LED headlamp and tail light, but halogen bulb turn signals. So this Honda Phantom Shadow is actually the opposite, where it uses halogen bulb headlight and tail light with newer style LED turn signals. To be fair, if you look at the head beam on this motorcycle when it's illuminated, it has like a ring on it, which it almost looks like it is LED, almost like an LED positioning headlight. But I had to double take it because it's not LED, it's in fact halogen, but the ring around it does make it seem like there is an LED ring. Now LED lighting's always boss, because typically it throws a brighter swath of light, which is really nice during night rides. It also helps the vehicle stand out a little bit more, especially when you have an LED tail light. Still, we do like that it does have LED turn signals. LED everything's always awesome. It uses less power and generally is brighter. Of course, because we are at an official press introduction product event, we aren't able to ride this bike after dark, so we can't assess its lighting capability, so we'll have to save that for a future installment. Back to this bike. God, this thing hustles around corners pretty nicely. Obviously this riding position and ergonomics aren't set up for corners. Our feet are very far forward, the handlebar is stretched out, and our back or butt is really to the rear of the motorcycle, so not the most conducive for carving corners. But in typical Honda form, the vehicle is so well balanced and engineered that you can actually do a little bit of sport riding on this thing. Well, if you call it sport riding, I don't know, I feel like it's pretty, I feel a little bit of sport. Engine sounds awesome, exhaust notes pretty pleasing, and I'm having fun. But then anytime I'm riding any type of power sports product, I'm always having fun, and that is the facts. Brake feel on this bike, I like the brakes. They are plenty powerful to shed speed on this 540 pound bike. Whoa, got some gravel right there. Plenty of power both in terms of the front and back brake. Yet these brakes are not overly sensitive. If you're someone who's new to riding, I think you're going to have a good time getting used to the braking package on this bike. It's not too aggressive. nor too wimpy, but just right. ABS is always a nice touch for you first timers and new riders out there. It allows you to use maximum braking pressure with no threat of wheel lockup like that. All right, folks, we're taking a little break. Let's pull over on the side here a little bit more, and we'll catch up with you in a little bit. All right, one thing I might not have shown you guys is the seat. Look at this seat. Look how deep and wide it is. This is a nice place to do business from. The cover is pretty decent too for an $8,400 bike. Another nice touch is this rear fender. This is plastic. I wish this was metal like Rebel, like the Rebel 300, 500, 1100R, but there's 6 bolts here. I think those are 12 millimeter. You remove these 6 bolts, and then this rear license plate hugger comes off, and then you can affix something that is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So nice job, Honda. Way to pay attention to the details. Well, folks, that was a fun day on Honda's 2024 Shadow Phantom Cruiser. At $8,400 for a bobber style cruiser, this vehicle represents significant value in the class. There aren't any American V-twin manufacturers that make a V-twin bobber style motorcycle for under 10 grand. So it's nice to see Honda occupying that space. This bike's nice. It's got a really excellent engine and exhaust note. The sound of this engine is just awesome. It's really impressive how Honda Motor Japan was able to engineer such a pleasing sounding motorcycle. It's easy to ride. It looks cool, minus the Honda logos. I wish it would do away with that. So if you're looking for an affordable, easy riding V-twin cruiser for urban rides, I think this Shadow Phantom would be a good option. Now, we didn't talk about heat management, but we rode this motorcycle mostly moving, at speed. We didn't do a lot of stop and go, if any, riding on this bike, and the air temperature is probably around 82, but you don't really feel any engine heat off this engine. Honda traditionally always does a really good job in terms of heat management with its powertrains, so it comes to no surprise that this 745 cc V-twin doesn't throw a lot of heat off the rider. Well, folks, that wraps up our official review. Make sure to surf on over to motorcyclistonline.com. That's where all of our written content comes to life. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs it down if you did, because we'd love to hear from the naysayers. Everyone's opinion counts here. And sound off in the comment section, what do you think of V-twin cruisers and Honda's Phantom Shadow? We want to hear from you. Make sure to check out our official preview video and our top 5 features of this bike video. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, as always, for riding with us.